the last week, right? So we actually introduced Ansible, and we actually clearly mentioned our agenda. What are our agenda? What are we going to cover as a part of Ansible, right? So we'll just recollect them. So this is what the agenda of Ansible topic is like. We need to cover all of them to make sure that we are comfortable and confident about Ansible. So it's not about like we'll cover hands-on also, right? Each and every topic we'll actually cover hands-on and make sure that we understand each and every features of Ansible via practically. Okay, and probably we also will try to I will try to explain few stuffs which were actually working in old operating system. We actually are using CentOS or operating system, like it was we were using 7 or 6, right? But now we are using CentOS 8. So few of the scripts are not working as expected. I will just give pointers how to make that working, how to what are the steps we need to do to make those scripts up. What are the steps we need to do to upgrade those scripts so that it works with the latest operating system also. Okay, so we last week we covered inventory management, right? So I hope all of you are actually confident about inventory management. To actually quickly recollect what inventory management is like, we can actually group all the machines to which Ansible is supposed to monitor or control the deployment of these machines. We can group all those machines in a particular location, in a particular file called hosts file. And those the way we actually group them, or the way which we actually execute the Ansible commands on those particular groups is called inventory management. So last session we actually introduced inventory management. We will actually touch again and again about the inventory management when we actually discuss other topics. Inventory management comes in every place actually, right? So when we actually discuss about ad hoc commands, when we execute playbooks, everywhere we will come across inventory management for sure. Okay, so we introduced about inventory management in the last session, and we will actually continue from there and discuss about other ad hoc commands. Parallel, let me actually start an instance of easy to instance so that we parallelly explain the theory, and parallelly we use the same time to actually to create let AWS create its own instance parallelly, right? So let me create a Bastion instance. So in industries, right? So generally Ansible is actually installed in one particular machine, and they name it as Bastion. It's a generally in industrial standards saying that from the external world you actually get into the Bastion machine, which is a gateway for the external world, and from there you have uh, depending upon your credentials, you have access to different internal machines. So we will use the same term so that we understand we are in sync with the industry itself, right? So I will just create a machine called Bastion for now. So this is the gateway to our internal VPC. Okay, I'm going to create that machine. I will use the same operating system, CentOS 8. From the beginning, I have been using the CentOS 8 because we can actually understand this concept for CentOS 8, and we can actually replicate the same thing for other machines as well. Whether it is Ubuntu machines or other machines like Windows machines. So Ansible can be installed in any machine. Ansible basic. Yep. Yeah, yeah. I will share the screen. Yep. Uh, okay. So. mm, Yep. So, uh, so I'm just going to create a Bastion instance. Um, Bastion instance, I'm going to create CentOS 8 machine. This one, as usual, from the beginning, I have been using the same machine, CentOS machine. Um, Good. So I'm just going to start this particular machine as usual. The key value pair, I'll use the same. I don't want to generate a old. I will use the same key value pair which I have actually created in the old session. AWS has a way to actually uh, store the Bastion key so that we can reuse the same Bastion key for multiple instances, right? I just created the same. I just use the same key pair. So the key pair I already downloaded it in the previous session. I already downloaded it. It's in my download folder already in my laptop. I can use the same bastion.pem to actually connect. Now, yeah, so we are good to go. So I just launched the instance. I think the basic minimum configuration is sufficient. I think I'm actually creating the T2 micro free tier Ansible. Okay, so I'll just launch a instance. So this instance is called Bastion instance. Again, I'm iterating. So it will act as a gateway to connect to other internal machines. So I will install Ansible in this particular machine, inside the Bastion machine, and I will configure this Bastion machine to connect to other multiple internal machines. So last session, we had a demo of creating multiple instances via Ansible script itself, right? So we will use the same thing now. Um, if you have uh, so we have in our source code, we have something called EC2YML. I gave a demo of launching multiple instances via Ansible playbook. So this is an Ansible playbook. Uh, we can create any number of instances of our interest, right? So I will use the same playbook. Actually, I will spin off multiple instances in the EC2 using this particular playbook in my Bastion machine. So for that, first I have to install Ansible. Okay. Yep. So let this happen. Let the launch happen. I think launch is already happened. Let me see. Yeah. So this is happened. Um, let's go to that particular machine. Okay. Yeah. So this is already there. Now how I have to connect to this particular machine. To connect, I will get the command to connect is this one. Okay. So I'll just connect to the machine. I'll just show you. uh, what I did in the last week. So I will actually quickly do that because I already have discussed in the last session. I will quickly launch. I will actually quickly connect to the machine. Just so my bastion.pm is already there in the downloads folder, I suppose. So I just use that particular downloads downloads folder and connect. This should be sufficient, I think so. Yeah. Okay. So okay. So I logged in as root. So it is complaining that you created a user called CentOS, and by default, um, when we create a CentOS machine, uh, EC2 actually creates a user called CentOS. Okay, so now I logged in into the newly created Bastion machine. I'm inside the Bastion machine now. Okay, so now nothing is there here. So as in the previous, I'm just iterating what I had did in the last session. So I think you are aware of the solve steps. Sudo sudo I will actually log in as root again. So afterwards, I will clone my repository, my CloudX lab repository. Okay, so repository URL. Okay, so it's the same repository all you can actually find in the CloudX lab in our session recordings also. Okay, so I have to install Git. So let me install Git. So install Git is very simple. Yum install Git. Before that, CentOS has a problem of mirror list. So we have all the comments. I already posted this comment also to you guys. Uh, we have to go and we have to update the mirror list. So this is what the command is used to update the mirror list. So okay, done. So it will take some time. It will take the time. So let it happen. Uh, okay, let it happen. So parallelly. we will explain uh, what topics are we going to cover. So we are going to spin off multiple instances. For now, let's say we will spin off three instances as we did in the previous session. We will spin off three instances via Ansible playbook. We introduced playbook in the last session. We will use the same playbook ec2.yml to spin off multiple instances. So the playbook is already there in our repo, AWS Ansible. We can actually use the playbook, and this is what we are going to execute. So this playbook contains um, a set of this contains only one task. This contains only one task, and here we have to decode this particular playbook. It's basically is a YML. Okay, so a YML is strict about indentation. So we have to follow the indentation strictly. Um, if you actually edit this particular playbook with wrong indentation, then it will actually complain you, saying that this particular playbook is not correct. Okay, so always remember the indentation should be like this is um, the name of the playbook, uh, which starts with name, and all uh, all uh, all commands which comes under name should be with the same indentations, like a host gather fact should be under the same indentation, which are supposed to be under, which comes under the under a particular key, under a particular variable. Like for vars, under vars we are going to declare multiple variables, right? So this should have something extra indentation, right? So if you actually increase the indentation, if you make a key pair instance type all with indentation as same as vars, it will not work. So this actually says that vars is a particular is a set of variables, and all the set of variables which are declared under vars should have a little bit more indentation. So so these are all nothing but simple variables. Like, in different programming languages, you have variables, right? Similarly, Ansible has variables. So here, key pair, instance type, security groups are variables in Ansible playbook, and we are using these we will use these variables in the specific task like this. So this is the syntax generally we that is used to copy the value of a variable. So so now in this case, key pair is replaced by the word bastion. Okay, instance type is actually replaced here. Security group values default, which is replaced here. So similarly, all variable values will be replaced. So this is how the variables actually work. Okay, and then further things like Ansible contains Ansible playbook contains multiple tasks. In this particular example, we have only one task. So, but we can actually have multiple tasks. Each and every task starts with a particular name, and if required, a module name. Okay, so in this case, we are going to use a module called EC2. So, what is a module? Ansible module are nothing but a set of library functions, set of libraries which which mostly is written in Python itself, and which can be downloaded and used via on need basis. In this case, if we are going to work with the EC2, right? So we are using a module called EC2, and we will download that particular module. Already Ansible has already that module in it. That module we get it when we actually install something called Boto 3. So Boto 3 is a Python library for EC2 instances. So Amazon guys have actually created a library called Boto 3, which is completely a Python library, and it has a few models which can be used by Ansible. And in that, EC2 is one of the module which we are going to use. Okay. So EC2 is what the module is. So assume that, so it looks like a single line, right? But that is very powerful. Like EC2 is, this name is nothing but it's a big library. It's a big Python based library which is used to perform different actions on AWS services, different AWS services, right? So we'll just be careful about it, like not careful, like just keep it in your mind. Though it looks like a simple term, but we need to actually install. We need to install this particular model to um, connect to the EC2 instances, work on EC2 instances. That's what we are going to do. And in this case, this particular YML, EC2 what YML, this particular playbook is actually performing a task of launching instances. So that's what we are trying to do. Okay. So yep. Yeah, so EC2 is the AWS service. Similarly, we can use the S3 also. So for S3, there will be some other service. We have to just use that particular that particular playbook module. We have to find out the module name correctly. I suppose the module name is S3 only. I have to recollect back, but the module name most probably it is S3 only. So when you say S3, then we are using all libraries which is related to S3. Yeah. Yeah. So when we actually install Boto 3, right, those model comes handy. Those all modules comes handy. Okay. So I'll just go ahead and install. I hope um, my installation happened successfully here. Yeah. So update has happened. Okay. I have to connect. I'll connect again. Now I am connecting back to my Bastion machine. I have upgraded my YUM with latest repo. Uh, Let it connect. Okay, it is taking some time. So is my EC2 instance up? Okay, let's see. Let's see. This is my EC2 instance, right? Okay. So basic thing like uh, we have modules for AWS. Similarly, we also have modules for Azure also. So we can actually connect to Azure virtual machines also. I have actually created a small demo of Azure also. If people who are actually interested in uh, Azure specific uh, uh, um, steps, right, to actually work on. I have created a small demo of half-an-hour demo. Probably you can actually go through that particular session. It will give a quick understanding of how can you use Ansible to actually work on Azure virtual machines. Probably if you want to start a virtual machine, you created a virtual machine in Azure and you want to start a virtual machine, and if you want to stop that virtual machine, you can just use Azure modules. So I will actually just give a session of how to use Azure modules also. I have a recording in it. I'll just post it in our WhatsApp group. Probably you can actually go through it. It should be very simple. So by that you will be confident saying that how what actually is what exactly is Ansible modules, and and we can say that Ansible has a proper ecosystem for different cloud, whether it is AWS, whether it's Azure. We have Ansible modules for everything. Okay, so I'll just post it to you guys. Probably I'll just post it to you now only. Just have a look afterwards. I will just post it to our WhatsApp group. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, so I have posted it in our WhatsApp group. This is actually using Ansible modules related to Azure. The steps that we actually follow to start simply, how can we actually simply start and stop a particular VM, VM which is actually created in Azure. We can actually go through it and understand what are the steps, basic steps we need to do we need to follow to control our Azure machines. Okay, cool. Now let's come to our EC2 instance. So are we able to connect? Let's see. SSH connect timed out. Okay, let's try again. Is it the same connect command? So 201, this is routed, right? Is it 201, right? Okay, so it is wrong actually. This is not the command. I think I am doing something else. Actually, okay, so I am already in the root and it is already upgraded. So this was the wrong machine. Let me close it. Covered confusion. Let me terminate it and then close it. Now I am already inside the Bastion machine. So 201, right? So I'm already in the Bastion machine. Now I'll try to install. I have upgraded my yum. I'll install Git. In order to clone my Git, I have to install Git. I'm already as a root user. Now I'll install Git via yum. It's install Git. For silent install, we use -y. Just install Git. Okay, so it's the same problem. I have to update the mirror list again. I have to find a permanent solution for it. It's happening only for CentOS 8 machine. Mm, then, so like you should be able to install Git. Once you install Git, I'll clone my Git repo. My Git repo is already there here, which is it's called a Clodex Lab repo. Just use that particular repo. Okay, now it's done. Yeah, so it is done. Now I'll do git clone on my repo. I'll use my credentials. I think my token, I can use my password or I can use personal access token to log into Git. Just use personal access token, which is handy with me. Okay, so I have cloned my repo. So my repo is there here. So I will quickly do the same thing which I have done in the last session. You all know the steps actually. So I will install Ansible. Okay, so these are the steps to install Ansible. Um, so is it perfect? It's root Ansible. Okay, so I can just quickly copy this. So let all the installation happen. I have to configure AWS also. So AWS configure so that I should actually install AWS CLI. So the steps to in AWS CLI to install AWS CLI on my CentOS machine, which is basically Linux, right? So I have the steps here. So in AWS website, you can actually install AWS CLI by following these steps. So you just need to curl and then, okay, unzip. I have to install unzip also. Unzip by default doesn't come in CentOS. So let me first install unzip. Okay, so I am installing Ansible. Finally, I completely installed Ansible. So the steps are already there. I have explained in the last session. The package.sh, I explained each and every installation steps. You can just follow them. So now Ansible is installed, and I will actually install AWS CLI by installing unzip. Let the unzip happen. So these are the basic fundamentals of Ansible. As we go on next to next steps, right? The things will become more and more complicated, actually. So if you jump directly to the complicated stuff, it becomes like very difficult to understand. So we will actually we will go step by step. What we can do, what are the fundamentals of Ansible? We need to be very strong in the fundamentals. Then we can just play with Ansible in advanced topics. Okay, so we are now just discussing the basic steps of how we are actually installing Ansible because Ansible is a Python library. We are just installing pip and we are using pip to actually install Ansible, and then we are trying to understand the basics of what is a playbook, how can we use the playbook. Later, we will go to other features. We'll explain like small topics. What are Ansible ad hoc commands? Now we have explained as we have explained what is an Ansible module. Similarly, we'll explain other. We have explained what is Ansible inventory management. So later we'll explain what is the Ansible ad hoc commands. Then we will explain what are the different Ansible playbooks that we can actually run that so that we get comfortable with. Afterwards, then we'll move to something called Ansible o- um, um, like Ansible Galaxy. What is Ansible Galaxy? Um, and afterwards we can actually discuss about Ansible vaults and so on, right? So we'll go on discussing more and more on Ansible, and then after we know understand the basic fundamentals of Ansible, then we actually can go ahead play with the playbooks. We can write complicated playbooks, which is for now we are having only one task. We can write multiple tasks in the simple playbook and just play with it. Okay, so that is our final goal. We should be able to write a very complicated playbook in Ansible, and we should be able to execute it. So in normal industries, you can see that generally the playbook contains lots of tasks. It's not a single one task or two tasks. They will having lot of tasks. The Ansible playbook will be referring to another Ansible playbook, and so on, right? So that's how in industry actually works. So for that to understand, we have to decode it, the playbook in step by step, and then we will go to the complicated stuff. Yeah, so now we are successful actually in installing Ansible. Now let's install unzip. Unzip we can actually install by command yum install unzip. That's it. Okay, because we need unzip to actually install AWS CLI according to the documentation of AWS. So we just follow this. So they say that we have to use unzip, right? So we'll just copy this. So now I am installing AWS CLI. I have installed AWS CLI. Then finally, I am going to install. Yeah, so I don't need sudo because I am already in root. So I just installed AWS CLI. Now I can just verify. AWS. I will configure my AWS with my credentials. So I will just type AWS configure. It is asking for AWS key ID. I already downloaded my AWS key ID. We already have discussed about how we can actually create, how can we create AWS private key, secret key and access key, right? So I have downloaded. I'm using the same. So it is asking for AWS key ID. I'm entering it. Okay, secret key. This is the secret key which I already downloaded. Okay, so default reason I will actually enter it later. That's it. Now I have everything ready. I have installed AWS and I have installed Ansible. Now let me see the EC2 YML. So I will actually open my playbook now. EC2 Ansible playbook. So I will edit the as in the previous session. I will edit the key page. So the this looks perfect. Bastion is the key name. Security rules looks okay. Now AMI and this one I have to verify it from my Bastion instance. So I have created my Bastion instance. What is the AMI of my Bastion instance? I have to look into it. It should be visible here only somewhere. So I will just use that particular AMI ID. Yeah. So this is subnet, right? I already have the subnet. I just me copy the subnet first. Uh, Wait a minute. Okay, so it's already there. In the previous session, I already had it, so this is already there. 3755F. Yeah, subnet is also there. So just keep a note that we have to update this particular variables properly. Let's see if the AMI is also correct. AMI 0E8606837683. Yeah, so everything looks the same. Yeah, I think it should work seamlessly, other than the reason. Okay, so reason is Mumbai, right? AP South 1, right? AP South 1. I have to edit it. AP dash South dash 1. Okay. Okay. So, okay, another thing, I just wanted to not have only single instance. I will create three instances for our demo purpose. So Ansible can be used to actually deploy hundreds of instances, right? We can actually deploy a software in hundreds of instances. So I want to give a demo on at least three instances. So let me do that. Um, okay, so we have to be very careful with the instances. So that is our Ansible module EC2 understands that word key count. So if I say count is equal to 3, it will create three instances of EC2. Okay, everything looks fine. All I need to do is like execute my playbook. To execute the playbook, I have to type Ansible playbook, Ansible playbook, Ansible playbook, and the playbook name. Um, Playbook name is EC2, EC2.yml, right? EC2.yml. So I have to just execute this, and yeah, I think that's it, right? Let's hope everything should be working fine. Yeah, things are happening. So it will actually create three instances. Let's see our AWS console. Let's go to our AWS console now. I don't need this anymore. I already configured it. Let me go to my NC2 instances. Let's see. I will actually see only, I want to see only running instances. Let me refresh this. Okay, so you can see that, uh, shall I, it's just terminal. So is there a way? Yeah, so I will just click on running instances. So you can see that already our Ansible playbook is working fine and it has pinned three EC2 instances. So these are the three instances it has actually created. Okay, so it has created three instances as a part of playbook. So it's as simple as that. We can actually automate it to create as many instances as possible. Uh, yeah, so we have given the subnet group, right? Subnet group. So basically, because of that, it is actually in the same VPC network. So, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So there is a limit actually. So there is a limit. Probably we have in our in our account we have that limit specified. In our session also, Ashok actually tried to create like 600 VPC instances, and it actually failed. It says that you have crossed the threshold limit. So in our EC2 configuration somewhere we will be having. I think this is the limit. I'm not sure. We definitely have a limit, like how many maximum launch config. I think this is what maximum is 200. That's what I think so. I'm not sure. I have never tried it. We can try it out, but if I try it out, I think my credit card will be charged so much. I don't want to take that risk. Um, so, uh, okay. Okay. Okay, if it is 5 or 6, we can actually try now itself to see, try with the 10 at least, and immediately we can delete some instances if required. So we can try that. So let's check that. I'll just edit my YML, and for now I'll say instead of 3, I'll say 10. Let's see. So I'm again executing my EC2 YML, and already 3 are created. Now let's see how many it will create. Running instances are 4. So it is launching. It is not throwing an error. Uh, yep. So looks like it is more than 10. Let's confirm it. It's more than 10 for sure. Uh, yeah, it looks like it worked properly. Yeah, it created 10 instances also. Okay, cool. So our limit looks like this is the limit configuration we can actually have. Yeah, 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 yeah. So previously, I remember I got some credits from EC2. Then I think because of that, my limit is set to 200. If you have a free account, maybe the limit is a little bit more, little bit less. Okay, so we have 14. Let's remove few instances. We will actually work on three instances for now to save time. Um, let's say we have only three instances. One, two, three. Okay. Now I will actually terminate all these instances. Just terminate it. Okay. So I am terminating all the instances, and I will use only three instances to actually uh, for the next part of the session. Okay. Okay, so now I have three instances in Bastion. We have successfully created three instances using Ansible Playbook. And what is the next step? So let's actually go to the next topic for our purpose. So in Playbook, right, we have a few checks that we can do actually. Right, for now, like we have something called syntax check. I think it's there in slide. Also, we can actually go through the slides. So if you want to just check the syntax of our YML, whether it is working fine or not, so we can just use uh, this particular attribute syntax check to check whether our syntax is working fine. It will not execute it. It will just check whether our YML is good or not. So suppose we have something wrong in our YML and our YML is very huge and it's very difficult to identify what is the error, right? So this is a very handy command that we can use, attribute that we can use. So, like, just you suppose say like you reduce the indentation, for example, like this. Save it. Now let me execute the syntax check. So it is giving you an error. So something wrong here in keep variable. There is something wrong in here. So it says that there is an offending line appears to be in this place. So this way you can actually debug your YML. So if your YML if you are not quickly able to find out because its YML is very huge, then you can actually use this particular command called minus minus so dash dash syntax check. Okay. So this is one important thing that we just generally debuggers actually use. Let me correct it again. Um, okay. Yep. So let's move to the next topic. There are other commands also. Whether we need to test our host, if you want to test all the list all the host, if you want to see our inventory file, which inventory file we are using, and so on, right? So there are other comments also, which is already there in our slides. So we can actually go through our slides and see all the handy comments that we can actually use. Somewhere here we'll come across that actually. So we have covered all these topics for now. Uh, yeah. So last week we also we actually discussed about how can actually generate SSH key, and how we can actually configure SSH key so that Ansible can actually control all the internal machines, right? So we will actually do the same thing again. So we'll quickly do the same steps now. So we'll actually use SSH keygen, SSH keygen, right? We are in the root. Okay, SSH keygen. We'll use SSH keygen and the attribute is minus key RSA minus P4096. to generate the key gen. Now we have public key, private key created. Now our private public key, private key is already there in this particular um, path. It is there, it is generated in root key. We have to actually copy this particular key to all the VMs that we have actually created right now, right? So we will be using internal IP of all the VMs. We have 3 VMs right now, right? So we'll just go through the VMs one by one. um, we'll see the IP addresses of each and every VM. We will try to copy the SSH key. So for that, we have to use Bastion first, Bastion PM file to actually connect for the first time. So we definitely need Bastion. We will actually copy it from a local machine. So I'll create a file called Bastion PM file. Um, I'll just create a Bastion PM file. PI works here. Bastion.pem file. I have this particular PM file in my local laptop. So yeah, so I can actually just copy it using Ender terminal. I'll just go to my Ender terminal. It's there in my downloads folder. I'll go to downloads folder. I will open my PM file, which is there in the downloads folder. Downloads folder, and the name is bastion.pem. Okay, so I'll open it. I'll just copy this particular file. Okay, so I have the PM file now. All I need to do is like copy the newly generated SSH key, which is there here, to all my internal machines. So internal machines can be connected via bastion.pem. So I just need to get the IP addresses, internal private IP address of each and every VM machines. So this is my private IP address. I'll copy the private IP address, and I have to use this private IP address. I will actually copy the public key to this particular machine, which is having the private IP address. This private IP address. Okay, so to copy that, we already have the command. Um, Already come happy. We'll be using the cat command SSH command combination. I already have that handy in my Sublime. So I just use this particular copy command. Okay. So before that, I have to change the bastion.pem mode. So generally we have to, otherwise it will not work. We have to make it for 400. Um, we have to make the permissions to 400 for bastion.pem, and then we will actually copy our public key. So the way we do is like this. Okay. So okay, so it got executed. Let me stop it. And I have to use the IP address. So this is the not the IP address. We need to update the internal IP address. Okay. Mm, so easy to instance. This is the private IP address. We are going to connect it via private IP address. So um, by doing this, what happens is like we can actually connect to our other machines which are launched without any without PM file, because we are actually copying our public key into this particular machine. Next time when we connect, we can actually connect without any PM file. It will be automatically authorized, because the private public key is already there inside the authorized keys. Okay, so once we do this, so let's confirm that. So I will not use any private key, public key, or any PM file. I'll just connect to that particular machine like this SSH and the machine name. Uh, I should be able to connect. So I am actually logged in successfully inside the machine without giving any PM file. So I have configured this particular machine for Ansible to be able to execute and log into that particular machine seamlessly. Okay. So similarly, I will do the same steps for other machines also. So the same command I will actually use to actually connect to other machines. So this is one machine. Second machine is this is the second machine. Let me get the private IP of this particular machine. Okay. So this way I am able to connect to the second machine as well. Okay, successful. Let's confirm whether I'm able to connect to that second machine without any PM file. And there you go. You are able to connect, right? Okay, so let me do the same steps for the third machine also. Third machine private key. So this is one time process. We can automate this also. So that's where we are going to go in next. Like once we become an expert in Ansible, we are we are not going to we will not we need not go do these steps also. We will write a Ansible playbook to generate SSH key, copy that SSH key to the machines, launched machines, everything we'll do via playbook only. So these steps that we are doing manually for each and every machine, right? That also we can do. So I just wanted to explain you that these are the steps that we need to do actually for the Ansible to configure, right? So same thing, we can actually write playbook to do the same stuff for us. Okay. Let me do the last IP address. Okay, now shall I be able to connect? Yep. So basically, we did it manually. But the end of the session, if we have time, we will actually we already have this session. Please go through the session if you have time. Next, we will explain you the steps uh, by which we can actually write automated scripts to actually create SSH key and copy that SSH key automatically by just running a single Ansible command, and it will actually copy the SSH key and automatically configure it to actually deploy or control that particular machine. Okay, so that's the final goal. So now we have configured all the machines. Now we have three machines, right? So these three machines have their own specific IP address. So we have discussed about inventory management, right? Now we'll practically see how we can actually add these all machines into our inventory file. So let's say that we will create a inventory file. Let's say we create a inventory file called host. We create an inventory file called host. Let's say that we can, as I said, inventory file, we have INA way of storing all the host machine names, and we can actually have a way of grouping all those host machines under multiple groups, right? So as a demo purpose, I will actually create a group. These all our machines are CentOS machines, right? So I just create a group called CentOS machines, for example. So I'll say CentOS machines group, and I will actually enter all the IP addresses. So IP addresses of the first machine. This is the first IP address machine. I'll just copy this, and second IP address I'll just copy here. So this is the second IP address. Yep, yep. hmm Each and every machine are having same configuration. Basically, we are yes. So we have used we can actually write different tasks to create different configurations, but we have used only same task, right? So if you want different configurations, if you want to install different operating systems in different machines, also we can do that. So it all depends upon what is the YML, what is the task that you have defined here in the EC2.yml. So this is the YML that we have. Yeah. Mm. No, no, no. No, they will not crash actually. So they are completely independent machines. So suppose you are creating, imagine that you are creating three different machines in different places which are independent of each other. Or in simple terms, you can say that you are having three laptops, completely independent. Okay. So you are having. Mhm, mhm. Okay. Yeah, so yes. So what happens is like if the customer has three machines, right? So if you want to control all the three machines, right? First of all, you should be able to connect to all these three machines, right? Right. You should be able to you should be able to connect to all three machines. Ansible uses the power of SSH as a core, as its core. It uses SSH as a core. The fundamental thing required for Ansible is that it should be able to connect to all these machines via SSH. That means whether it is Windows machine or whether it is Linux machine, it should have Open SSH installed in it. So SSH basically has like SSH server, SSH client configuration, right? So you should be able to configure in your client machine. The client machine should have SSH client installed in it. And once you have SSH client installed and you have exchanged the key value pairs between your machine and your client machines, client 1, client 2, client 3, you have to exchange the SSH keys, basically public key only. You should not expose your private key. You should just say your client that, okay, copy this public key in your client's authorized key locations. That's what we have did now by this command, right? So by this command, uh, by this command cat, um, this cat command is right. So imagine that your client machine is having some IP address 172 something, right? Whether he is outside the network, whether he's inside the network, you should be able to connect to that particular machine, right? So your client should be having some IP address to which you should be able to connect, right? So once you copy your public, you create a private key public key combination inside your laptop, and then you generate this public key private key and then copy your public key into your client machine. Into your client machine, you just copy your public key into your client machine, client 1, client 2, client 3, all these clients you actually can copy your public key. Once you have copied this public key and add it into their machine's authorized key list. Once you have that, once not necessary, not necessary, not necessary. Uh, it is not necessary. You can use the same public key for all the client machines, but if you have some security restrictions saying that client one should be actually connect via different SSH and public key, then that also you can do. So you can actually generate your key value pair, right? Like SSH key gen, I have did it right here somewhere in the top. So you remember this one, right? SSH key gen. So by default, it is creating a public key, private key in this location, root SSH ID RSA. Suppose like for client one, you will create a public key, private key location in this particular location, root SSH ID RSA. And next time for the client two, again you will generate SSH keygen P minus RSA, minus T RSA, minus B4096. Again you will generate, and for the client two, probably you will create a separate folder saying that SSH client two. You will create a separate public key private key pair for client 2 in your local laptop. You will create a separate folder for him saying that client 2 IDRSA. Okay, and similarly for client 3 you can create a separate public key private key pair, client 3 in a separate folder called client 3 RSA. And once you have that three, you will be having three pairs: public key IDRSA 1, IDRSA 2, or IDRSA 3 for example. Okay, now you can use IDRSA 1.pub for client 1. Okay, so while copying this particular public key, you can say that you have three pairs, right? So idrsa1.pub you can copy into the client with IP address 221. Okay, now for client 2, you can have idrsa2pub. idrsa2pub you can use it and copy it into uh, into client 2 IP address, which is 141. So similarly, you can use multiple pairs. And when you actually connect, you have the public key. Though there are different public key, you can actually connect using different key pairs to different machines. No, they are different things. Ansible uses SSH key, but Ansible is not perfectly tied up with SSH. SSH is a completely different software, which is OpenSSH, which by default comes with other OSs, all OSs like Mac OS by default. Whenever you have Mac machine, whenever you have Ubuntu machine, I think SSH, Open SSH already comes by default. In Windows, I think we need to install specifically the SSH server, SSH software, SSH client. We need to. Uh, no, no. Docker containers will not play any role here. So Docker. So let me explain step by step. Okay. Mm, mm, mhm. Yeah, yeah. It is possible. Yes. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, yeah. So we can connect to different Docker machine. Imagine Docker is nothing but we can look it as Docker is a different machine with a specific IP address. Once you should be able to get the particular Docker machine name, and to connect to that particular Docker machine, all you need to do is like connect inside the particular Docker machine, right? If it is inside within your laptop itself, then probably you can just use the command like docker exec minus it command to actually just get inside the Docker machine. But if your Docker is already installed in your machine and is exposed to the world, other world, imagine Docker is nothing but a separate machine. Once you actually install Docker, once you create a Docker container, you can actually imagine that this container is itself is a different entity. Whether it is exposed within your laptop or it can be exposed to the entire world, right? So if you assign a public IP address to your Docker machine, it is as equal as you can access this particular Docker machine from any other laptop also. All you need to do is like you have to configure your Docker with a specific IP address. Pardon? Yeah. So we have to do some extra steps to actually assign a IP address to Docker. It doesn't come as default. So when you actually create a container, by default, it is running only within your machine only, within your laptop machine, and it can be accessed within your laptop only. But if you want to expose it to the other world, you have to expose some specific ports, some specific ports. For example, like to connect to the Docker via SSH, you have to install SSH software inside the Docker if it is like Windows machine. But if it is Docker is a normal Ubuntu machine, by default SSH will also might be there. You just have to SSH, you have to expose the port 22 port. Once you expose this port 22, then if you have to configure to actually have a specific public IP address, once it is there, right, it is as equivalent as running independent machine which can be accessed from the external world. Okay, all you need to do is like you need to understand, right? uh, so you need to understand one thing, right? So SSH is a software that is used to log in to a remote machine. SSH is a software to use it, that is used to log into a remote machine. Whether the machine can be anything. The machine can be a separate physical entity, physical machine like laptop, or the machine can be a virtual machine, or the machine can be a Docker machine also. So SSH is a simple software that is used to connect. And how we connect is like a simple command like SSH minus I. So this command you can see right now like this. So this command that we can use to connect to any machine. So all we need to do is like the machine name, the machine username, and the machine IP address here. And if the machine has a public domain also, you can just use that particular domain, public domain also. So this command will actually connect to any machine which exposes it via SSH client. So you just have to use this particular command. So SSH is a separate software. Okay, it is a separate software that can be connected to any machine. And Ansible uses the power of SSH internally to connect to any machine. Ansible is a software. It knows that I want to deploy a particular software in any machine, but I need help of SSH to connect to that machine. Understand? Yeah. So what Ansible says that, Okay, I can deploy in any machine, any part of the world. I can connect, I can deploy, I have all the functionalities, all the features that are required to uh, deploy software. I want to deploy IIS in a particular Windows machine. I have all the power to do that. All I need is I need SSH utility function that helps me to connect to that particular machine. Once I have that SSH utility helping me to connect to that particular machine, once I'm able to connect to any machine, I can use that particular connectivity tool SSH to deploy anything of my interest. So that is how Ansible works. So all you need to do is you have to configure your remote machines with SSH, and you should be able to connect to that particular machine. And Ansible will be once it has that connection done, connection configuration done, it can actually deploy anything in that particular remote machine. Yep. Yep. Yes. Mm. Yes. 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 Yep. Okay. Okay. Yep. So I hope it was a good discussion. So I hope we are clear, right? So just keep in mind, like for Ansible uses SSH as a powerful tool internally. It takes help of SSH to actually perform all the functionalities. Ansible, what does Ansible do? It performs deployment, monitoring, controlling of any remote machine. It performs orchestration, uh, which is basically all the things that we do in a production machines, right? So it does all the orchestration tool. All it asks for is that perform a initial configuration for me to remotely connect to that particular machines of interest via SSH. So that's what we are doing. That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So if you see, right, let's say, for example, let me connect. Um, So that's where the inventory management comes to picture. So what machines we need to connect? So um, uh, what machines what machines like this software needs to be installed in only few machines. It should not be installed in other machines. So those logic will be there, right? So for that purpose, though Ansible has configurations to connect to all machines, we can actually group them into logical entities. And the way we do is via inventory management. Inventory management, we actually store all the machines in grouped fashion. So a simple example of how we do is I have explained, I have shown you is like this. So here, like I have created a file called hosts. So by default, Ansible actually finds its inventory in somewhere called slash etc slash Ansible slash hosts. So this is the default location it will look for. Okay. Otherwise, if you can actually explicitly mention the host file location via attribute to the Ansible playbook command via -i attribute. You can actually mention the inventory file name explicitly, saying that so this is the host file name, and the group name is what I am interested is only CentOS specific machines. So this is what I can actually say. -i host, that means the host file name is host, and in that file, the group I want to use is CentOS. This is what I can actually explicitly say to the playbook. Or I can mention the host file name, host group name to inside the YML itself. Like in the YML, for example, let's say EC2 instance. I will explain you one by one afterwards. Here you have this particular attribute host, right? So it says that I want to use a group called localhost, as I already explained. So it will look for a group called localhost in the inventory file that I have already mentioned. Suppose, mm, suppose I have like I host. Okay, so I have a group called CentOS, right? Similarly, I can create a separate group called so it's called localhost. You remember last session I actually create for removing the confusion. Instead of localhost, I can actually say my localhost. It is not the localhost that you actually think. So I can say that it is the group name is my localhost, and inside it I can have group of IP addresses. Probably one of the IP addresses is localhost itself, localhost itself. So this is how you can actually group all the inventory files. Probably I can have another group. Another group comes something called my production database servers, for example, DB servers. So I can group all my DB servers into one particular group, and I can give IP addresses. Like I can say that one of the CentOS machines can be DB server, right? So this is what I am actually thinking of this particular machine to become a DB server, right? So similarly, I can actually logically group all my host machines into different groups. So this is a typical example of three groups. One group is the CentOS group, which has two machines, and my local host is one group which has only one machine, and DB servers is one particular group which has only one machine, right? So this is the typical example. We can go deeper. We can say that there are different other keywords that we can actually use. There is one particular keyword that is relevant right now. So we can say that we want to connect to this particular machine 172.31.37.40 141, and I want to log in into that machine as this user. Ansible user is equal to CentOS. I can explicitly say that when I log in, I want to log in into the machine as a CentOS user. So this configuration I can say, okay, and also I can say the connection type also. This is not my local machine. I want to connect it via SSH. So I can say that, okay, so I am using SSH tool to connect it. So that's what is the attribute name. Ansible connection is equal to SSH. So this is what I can actually explicitly say. Okay. So, but if it is a local host, I don't want to connect it via SSH. So that's what I will say. I'll say that Ansible connection is equal to not SSH, but it is just local machine. I can say that I will not use SSH tool to connect to that machine. It is just residing inside my machine where Ansible is running. So Ansible connection is equal to local should be sufficient. Okay. So similar, this is a typical example of a host machine. Okay. So we can just go ahead and add another IP address for now. So 141, 152, we added it, right? So let's continue with the next part. Um, Next part here, third machine. So let's go ahead and actually add the IP address, private IP address of the third machine. The third machine is IP address. Where is it? Okay, private IP address. Okay. So I have configured saying that I have created a group which is having three IP addresses. Okay. So I'm just saving it. So I have created an inventory file called host. So this is how I have typically mentioned it. And I want to, so if I want to execute any command on a particular group, I can just execute that particular command. For now I'm going to introduce a particular Ansible ad hoc command called ping. I will execute that particular command. So in order to now you have seen still now you have seen a command called Ansible playbook, right? Ansible playbook. Instead of Ansible playbook, we have something called Ansible command called Ansible, which actually takes only one particular simple command as the input. So I can say I will say the command name, which is basically module with attribute minus m. Okay, and I will say the module name is ping. I think this is the syntax and module name ping. And I will say that I am going to use the inventory file host, which I have just created, and I have to execute it on only group called CentOS. CentOS, and I think that should be sufficient, right? So let me execute it. Like I think the syntax is correct. Okay. Oh, okay. So I have to actually get into my environment. I have created a virtual environment, right? I have to get inside my virtual environment. The virtual environment is the best way to actually work with any kind of Python script so that your machine is not getting corrupted. So whenever you do play with any private Python scripts, right, it's always better to create a virtual environment. I have created a virtual environment called Ansible. So I will activate my virtual environment Ansible bin activate. Okay. So now I am inside my virtual environment Ansible. So once I am inside my virtual environment, then only my Ansible commands will be visible. So I was actually outside my virtual environment where I haven't installed Ansible. I have installed Ansible inside the virtual environment. So only Ansible will be visible once I am inside the virtual environment. So I will execute the same command here. So here now I think Ansible command should be visible, right? So I just need to have. Okay, so something wrong. 152. Okay, so I have to say that as I have to I have to connect as user CentOS. I think that is a problem. Okay, so this thing worked, right? So let me explain you what I'm doing. So ping command, right? Ping, like whether you want to just test whether uh, okay. So if you want to test that a particular machine is ready to listen, whether it is on or not, whether it is running or not, right? So use ping command. So Ansible has a very handy command, which is basically Ansible module called ping. So all you need to do is like if you want to test a particular set of machines are uh, on or not. So this command actually helps us. So all you need to do is like you have to execute an Ansible command, and we have to provide a module called ping. And to ping, we will say that what pages we need to ping. That we have to mention the inventory file name that we have just created, right? So this host inventory file contains a group of machines, right? One, you remember the machines where CentOS was one group where three machines were there. Localhost was one group, my localhost was one group, and later DB servers was one group. So I used CentOS group. I just said that I want to ping all machines which are under group CentOS, and I'm using all these machines are having a username as CentOS, right? So I just executed this particular command, and it pinged all the machines 141, 188, and 152, and it successfully replied with ping pong. Okay, so this way you actually confirm that all the three machines are in running state. Why you got an error here? you got you got error in two machines, but you got successful in one particular machines. That's because uh, we already mentioned that particular username inside the host file. So if you remember, if I open, remember this particular IP address 141. Okay, 141. So let me open the host machine. In this host machine, this machine 141 was successful because I already said that 141 when I try to connect, I will connect it as a user called CentOS. So I am using the CentOS user credentials. So that machine already has a user called CentOS. So it is actually able to respond with the Pong. Okay, 152, 188, I haven't explicitly mentioned that what is the username I have to explicitly connect. So it will defaultly try to connect with default user, which is uh, here, which is like root, right? Root. It will try to connect by root, which will not work for sure. So suppose if I execute the same command, which if you want to execute the same command without using the minus u option, without using the minus u option, I just want to do, and I want to make it successful. All I need to do is edit the host file again and explicitly mention that each and every machine should be connected via user CentOS. Okay, so if I say this, and if I execute now, Ansible ping minus this one, if I execute the same thing again, now these two which were failed before, now it will be successful. See, all the three were successful. Suppose I can actually mention I mentioned that I want to execute on only CentOS user. Instead of CentOS user, I think there is a keyword called all. All. All basically it will actually execute on all machines inside the host inventory. Okay, and I will say the username as CentOS. Okay, so it worked, right? So it will actually connect to all machines. Localhost 144, 188, 152, all. It actually executed on all machines. Total machines 1, 2, 3, 4. All the four machines it actually executed. Okay, totally. It gives a summary that it is able to do Pong for all the machines. So basically, it by using all, it executed in all the groups which are there in the host machine. In the host machine, we had three groups, right? So this is one group, this is the second group, and this is the third group. It executed in all the third group, and actually it finally merged. It identified that this machine is already pinged here, and it will not do the ping command again because both are the same machines, but they are in the different group. So finally, we got four outputs: localhost and all other three IP addresses. It gave the output, right? So, so, so this is an example, typical example of how we can use, how we can execute a typical ad hoc command, a typical ad hoc command in Ansible. This is a simple example of ping, which is pretty much handy to identify if a particular machine is reachable or not. So now we'll actually go through other handy Ansible ad hoc commands. We'll actually visit one at a time. Let's go to let's see our slides. Okay, so let's see here. So we have gone through ping test, right? So this is what the ping test is about. Mhm. So we have also gone through how to group, how are we actually grouping hosts together. Another point to actually mention here. So host can be actually of two formats. We have used this format. We can actually store hosts in format of YML also. So this is another format that we can use, YML format. So we have one format of INA format and YML format. So we have used an example of INA format. The same, though the logic is same, depends upon your interest. You can actually write a host configuration inventory file uh, using a YML syntax. So this is what the YML syntax looks like. I personally prefer host. Most of the them actually use host only, I suppose. So because it is very simple to look at, I generally use INA format to actually store the inventory information. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so we have gone through. So there are other attributes in the host also. So if you want to say that one particular host, we can actually use host port, port number also, host port number. If you want to connect to that particular machine via port number. Um, yeah. So there are many other attributes and also we can actually mention in the host file. Okay. So let's move to ad hoc commands. Ad hoc commands. So this is the typical pattern of a typical ad hoc command. Okay, so like Ansible playbook, Ansible is the command. Okay, um, so Ansible official website actually gives a uh, list of all commands supported via Ansible. So there is some other commands like Ansible playbook, Ansible. There is something called Ansible doc list. There are a few other commands. You can actually go to the Ansible website and see what are all the list of. So actually there are only 5 to 6 commands in Ansible core fundamental list of commands. Okay, so this is the typical pattern of Ansible ad hoc command. Here, the syntax you have to mention the model name of your interest via attribute minus m, and if you and the actual command that you need to execute in that particular machine of your interest is given by the attribute minus I option. Okay. Okay, so we'll go through one each and every other commands of which we can actually execute via Ansible. So this is another example, right? So this command is handy. Like if you want, yum is a package manager, right? You can actually install any software in your remote machine by using this particular command. So Ansible minus yum shell. So shell is a module name, and you want to install this example. You want to install Git, right? So install the Git, you just need to give that command inside the minus I. Let's see how it happens. Okay, so let me copy this file, this command, or I can actually type it. Okay, let me execute copy this. Actually, it is two lines, right? Okay, let me copy one. Okay, it got disconnected. Let me connect it. Let me connect to it again. Okay, I'll connect as root. Okay, I connected as root. Now I have to activate. Okay, now inside I think I have my host file, right? Yeah, I have a host file. I have all the commands. I have to just execute my command, shell command, right? I have to execute the shell command, and I have to mention the command. So this is a typical example of installing Git, right? As silent install, and I want to install it on all host file which is having CentOS, and I think that's it. So I need not give the user. I want to execute it as root, right? So this is what is the attribute that we need to use. In order to install, we need root privileges, I suppose. Otherwise, it might not work. So I just execute. I will use minus become. I think that's it, right? Yeah, so it will actually go through all this group of CentOS specific group which is configured to connect to three machines. So let's see. I think it will just go ahead and install. Okay. Okay, so here is one good example that we can actually use. So it is actually failing because of repo error. So I have this particular command handy with me, sudo seed, right? So I can actually execute these commands right now. Um, so first of all, instead of yum git install, I will just install my uh, repository mirror list updating command. Yep, it worked. So it worked on all the three machines. So next command, I have like execute this particular command, which I actually do for all CentOS machines. So just go ahead, execute this. So you can execute all these commands parallelly in all the three machines. So just need to execute this, and you see that all the three machines by a single command you are deploying all the you're executing this particular single line script in all the three machines successfully. Okay, now let's see if the git works. Now you saw before, like, this git was failing, install of git was failing, right? Now let's see the git installation. You can see the git installation now. At least it should work. There you go. So it is executing. So it will successfully install Git in all the three machines. Installing Git will take some time. So it is definitely working. Now it is successfully installed Git all in all the three machines, one machine, two machine, three machines. So you can see that all the three machines have been successfully installed with Git. So this is a typical example of how you can execute a yum install command using module shell. So you have just executed a shell script and installed Git there. So what happens if you actually install, if you execute the same script again? So if you execute the same script again, you will get the execution saying that it's already done. You can verify that by seeing that this color, the color will be in green color, I suppose. Let's see. Let's execute it again. It is not coming it as green. It covered it actually. I thought it should be in green, but it says that it's already there, right? So nothing to do. It says that nothing to do. The installation was already done. That's what it said. So even if you do multiple times, it will just say that okay, the expected software that you have asked to install, it's already installed, and nothing else to do. So this is a typical example of how we can actually use a shell module in Ansible. So these are the few frequently used modules which imagine that you have hundreds of servers and you want to install a one particular software immediately, very fast in all the CentOS machines. It's a single line command, and using single line command you can actually execute in all those hundreds of machines. Yeah. No, no, Git. So Git is not as a part of utility available to Ansible. So it imagine that you are, yeah, yeah, okay, right, yeah, yeah. So it will. I think it's in. So it basically executes under the uh, shell kernel, right? Yeah. So, hmm. We are using a shell module, which basically is a shell module is a Python library only, where yep, yeah. So we are using a shell library, which is basically Ansible understands all libraries in Python only. I think this shell module is written in Python, which is available to Ansible. It knows how to invoke a shell shell kernel script and execute the script, which is given to the shell prompt via -a attribute. So we have yes, yes. So now we have executed this command also. Not only git, we have also executed this particular command also, which was successful. So any command which can be invoked in shell inside the CentOS machine can be executed via shell. So yeah, so we have actually visited shell module, ad hoc command, how to execute an Ansible ad hoc command, shell using module shell, and using module ping, right? So similarly, we'll go through other modules also. So our slides are very much handy, which actually gives us all frequently used. So this is another most frequently used module, copy. Suppose you want to copy a particular file which is in your laptop, in your machine where Ansible is running, and you want to copy into all your machines, all your host machines. So, sorry. Yeah, so this particular module copy will actually copy from a source location to the destination location. So in the -a attribute, you just need to give the source file which you need to copy to the destination location where it is supposed to copy inside that remote machine. So what the remote machines can be picked from the inventory file. Okay, so this is one particular example. I'll just show you one example. So let's see if we have something in our hosts file, etc host file, right? So let's see, like, okay, nothing is there. Yeah, hosts, there is something in hosts, right? So our host file is having some two entries here in this machine. So let's copy this particular file. So to copy this file, I need to execute a command Ansible with -m copy. and I have to give the command via attribute minus a, and the source file and destination file. That's src, right? Mm, the syntax is src. So src is equal to slash etc hosts, and dest is equal to that's what we have mentioned, temp hosts. So this is the destination, and where we what is the inventory that we are using? We are going to use the inventory and all the CentOS machines that we are going to use. And we need not give the minus u option because in the host we already have given that Ansible user is CentOS. That's sufficient. Okay. So now I think this is what the command is, right? Nothing else, right? Ansible, yeah, the host machine name. So here servers, he has given the servers. That's the same thing he has sent to us. So order doesn't matter. I have given this the group name at the end. Here in the slide, they have given it in the beginning. So the same, we can actually try to give it in the beginning itself. So we can just give the sent OS group name just after Ansible. So this CentOS is a group name inside the inventory host. Okay. Yeah, so I have to give it not like this. I have to give minus I host, right? So I have to give the inventory name via attribute minus I, and the inventory file name is host. That's it. So it will go ahead and copy uh, the etc host file from the Bastion machine, which we have seen the content. This is the content, right? And it will copy. It will just copy this file into the remote machine. We can just verify whether the copy has done or not. So you remember the copy location is temp host, right? Temp host. We can select one particular machine in our AWS. We can just go ahead. We can remotely log in into this particular machine, explicitly log into the machine to verify that the copy has happened or not. So just go and do log in into the machine via IP address. There is no need to provide the PM file, just log in. You are into the machine now. You are inside the machine, CentOS machine. Now let's verify whether the machine copy has happened successfully or not. So what is the location? Slash temp hosts, right? Yep. So this is what has happened. Like the file got successfully copied into the remote machine. So we have verified it by logging into the machine successfully. Yep. So let's come out of the machine. So this is a typical example of how generally we can actually copy a file, whether it's a directory or whether it's a file, from one machine to all other machines, to a group of machines by a single ad hoc command. So this is the power of Ansible, right? So by just executing one particular command, imagine that you want to execute without Ansible. What you have to do, you have to actually explicitly run these commands to in each and every machine, right? So Ansible is pretty handy in this case. Okay. So this is one particular example of a typical Ansible module used in Ansible ad hoc commands. Okay. Let's move to the next part. Okay, so here is another example of ad hoc command, which actually again use the yum package. So there is something called HTTPD, which which we want to actually make sure that it is installed or not, right? So a typical example, this example shows how we can actually install HTTP inside a remote machine, right? So all we need to do is like run this particular command with this particular mod with this particular installer name. We will just say that state is equal to present. It will make sure that that HTTP is installed in that particular machine. Okay. Yep. So all we need to do is execute this particular command. So we can just it will not take much time. Let's do this also. It didn't get copied. So I said the machine name, I named it as server CentOS, not servers. Probably, probably we can actually rename it to CentOS. Then the command should work as seamlessly as it was just copy paste. Okay, now this will actually make sure that HTTP is present in the remote machines. with groups and toys. Okay, that's it. So you can see that you can see the power of how easy it's to install HTTP using Ansible, right? So similarly, there are other commands like so. This particular command makes sure that verifies that you have a specific version of HTTP. It confirms that uh, by this command, if you say that if the installed HTTP version is 2.4.41 only, then it will return a success status saying that okay, what you are expecting is already installed there. But if a different version is there, then it will fail. Okay, in this case, right, you have seen that it has installed a different version. It has installed a older version 2.4.37. So definitely this particular command will fail now. Okay, so let's do that. So don't get confused about why what is this server. I think it is better to actually uh, put that location after minus I only. So that logically makes sense. Though Ansible is clever enough to decode it, but this is basically the group name inside the host file. Yeah, so always it makes sense to group it along with minus I option. Minus I host, and inside the host, what group you need to execute, that's what you are going to mention here. Okay, so don't put it to the beginning Ansible, though it works, but understanding for understanding purpose, always keep it after host. After host, you have mentioned the inventory file via minus I host, and inside the host machine, which group you are going to execute, the CentOS machine you are going to execute. That's what you're doing, right? Let's execute this particular command, and it will give an error because you have seen that, right? Because you have seen that you have installed HTTP of version 2.4.37.43. This is what is already installed, but you are verifying it with 2.4.41. So which definitely is not there. That version conflict is there, right? So it will give an error saying that no such package is there. Let's try to change the version here. Let me be careful. Hopefully, I will identify it. 2.4.3743. 2.4.3743. Yeah. So this is what the version I am expecting now. Now it will be successful because I know that that is what the version I have installed recently, right? 2.4.3743. So 2.4.3743. I think now it should successful. It should be successful. Let's see. Yep, see, now it said that okay, you were expecting the package with this particular version. I found the exact version that you are looking for, and it is working fine. Gave me a green signal. So this is how you can verify a specific package version, whether a specific package version is installed or not using Ansible head of command. Okay, so this is also pretty much good learning. So it's like you can actually verify whether what is the make sure that there is no version conflicts in production environment, right? So version conflict is a huge headache in production. Sometimes some other version conflicts may happen and so on. So we can just verify what version is there in a specific machine via simple ad hoc commands. Okay. So let's go. So we have lot of use cases. We have covered most of the use cases, and it is pretty much each and every command is looks very simple, but they are very powerful. Just keep in mind all these commands and what we can do, and this slide is pretty much useful for us. Okay. Um, yeah, so to make sure we can actually make sure that whether the latest version of the software is installed or not by using the state latest, and similarly we can actually uninstall it. We can actually uninstall it also by using this particular command. So state is equal to opsend. It will just uninstall our HTTP. Okay, so it will change. Let's go and uninstall it. And, let's go to the beginning. And let's remove the servers. Ansible CentOS. that should be good. Oh, there was three become, right? Three dash. I think our slide has a small bug here. There is a three dashes. Just I think it's a simple typo error. Just remove single dash. Become should be dash dash become. And and why didn't it work? Hmm, everything looks good. Command not found. Okay, so there is a dollar. I copied the dollar also. Hmm, okay. Okay. Now it will uninstall it. It will uninstall. Okay. So HTTP is completely uninstalled. It is removed now. Now we can verify that by just executing this particular command. Now it will say that it is not available. Yeah, so it just says I because I installed HTTPD. Now it will say that okay, whatever you are expecting that HTTP of this version should be there. It is no longer available because I have just uninstalled it. Okay. All right. So now let's take a break for 10 minutes and we'll get back. So I'll get back probably in 9:53. Let's take a small break for now.